though. You know what I'm saying? Like obviously I thought Embiid was a little overrated, but
Yeah.
the most overrated is different, Dan. And, there's a couple players we probably could look at here. I think both you and I could probably find a few. And you touched on one earlier. You said his name. Do you think he's the most overrated player in the first round?
So yeah, I think I had mentioned it before, but I think I'm going to go a different direction. I think Tatum is overrated. If you look at Tatum's history of performance in fantasy, he's never been a top 12 guy, and yet he's consistently drafted there. So that's always just a red flag for me. I'm like, all right, do we just want this guy to be? So he finished one time in the top 12, but yet he's always drafted in, I'm saying, that 5 to 8 range. My guy is the biggest riser into the first round, which is Anthony Edwards. And I ranked him number 10. And it's a bold ass ranking, bold as fuck ranking, because he hasn't finished better than what? Oof, let me see real quick. Anthony Edwards hasn't finished better than like 35. Right. So to make a leap to first round value is insane.
It would take a lot.
It's going to take a lot. He's going to need to average more steals. He's going to need to be more efficient from the field. He's going to have to shoot like probably 47, 48%. He's going to have to get his points up to at least 28, 29, maybe even 30. But Karl Anthony Towns leaving, I think, opened the door for Ant to take on even more usage. And now with Julius Randle, definitely more of a playmaker than Karl Anthony Towns was. Yeah. This is the opportunity where I feel like Anthony Edwards could actually make that leap. Is it first round leap? Probably not. But again, I say fantasy basketball is fun. Anthony Edwards is a dog. He's going to be the face of the league soon enough. He's going to average 30 this year.
He's going to average 30. And I think that's the one thing you're hoping is like, but I think that's the problem. And I we don't always agree on stuff, Dan, but I agree with you here. Like, I think we're like forward thinking too much with Ant here. And we're forward thinking too much with this trade and how many doors are really going to be open for him scoring wise and usage wise this year. Because Julius Randle is a ball dominant player. It's not like he's, let's facilitate and let's, the offense doesn't
He's not deferring.
He's not at all. The offense has to go through him. He's a bull. When he gets the ball, he puts his head down and gets to the rim. Like that's just who Julius Randle is. So I think I didn't understand this move from the Minnesota side. I get offloading like Cat and getting value, but like schematically, I didn't understand this move. So hopefully on the court, we'll see something different. But when it comes to Ant, like where is he going to excel this year? It's not like his field goal percentage is going to go up in a crazy way. It's not like his defensive stats are just going to go up in a crazy way. And I think the usage is probably going to bring more turnovers. So unless he ups his 3-ball too, and he's hitting 3 threes a game, I don't know if he hit 3 threes a game last season. I know it was close, but unless he's just changing a big part of his game, I just don't really see a path for Ant to be in the top 10. We have other players who are like on the verge of being top 10 that I think could outproduce him.
So I think the biggest place where I think I mentioned it a minute ago, but if he could get up to 1.6 to 2 steals a game, he's going to be, with the numbers he was putting up last year, he could be very close to second round value and potentially push for first round, because that's what Donovan Mitchell did last year. Donovan Mitchell was a top 12 player because he averaged 1.8 steals. He's never done that before with all those efficiency. I mean, he shot 46%. That's not great. You know what I mean? So he's going to have to 3-ball steals. If he can get that and up to, 25 to 30 points a game, it's possible, but I think unlikely.
Unlikely, man. And, I think that's the problem with it. It's just like, sometimes you buy into the player before it happens. You want to be first to the market. And I honestly think that's what it is with AE. And I think a player that we've always drafted too, Dan, on the kind of an older player, not even old. It's funny. They asked his teammates, they were like, are you old now? Or are you not old? Giannis is 29, but it feels like he's obviously been in the league forever. Yeah. I think he's a little overrated this year. And we know what he provides. Like we know the floor. We even seen it with Dame last year. And obviously Doc, they change things around, and Doc normally gets a lot out of his superstars, but I think what Giannis, his flaws dip into a little bit of his value, right? When you talk about now you're giving some of the scoring away to Lillard, but he doesn't really shoot threes at a high clip, turns the ball over a lot. And we kind of know his stat line is capped in essence, right? Obviously going to dominate in field goal percentage. I just think the floors where he hurts you, he's a high volume free throw shooter in category leagues. I think he plummets that on a weekly basis. And then, like I said, I just know we know the turnovers are there, and the defensive stats don't do enough for me in order to offset those turnover risks. So for me, I kind of think Giannis, who goes as like a top 5 to 8 type range player, I think he belongs more the back end of the first or maybe the high in the second round. It's the name value that kind of carries him, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, 2 years ago, Giannis was 110th in per game value in fantasy. Last year, he made the substantial climb back up, but he was at best 34th.
Man.
So I think it's the flaws and the warts in his game that it just makes it more difficult to build around him, right? Like, you want to build off balance. Like, balance is key in fantasy basketball, especially in category leagues. And if you're already going into your draft after your first pick being severely deficient in free throw percentage, and he's not really getting you that many stocks, like, I mean, his numbers are like, you're not going to draft like Giannis is a first round pick talent wise because he gets 30 and 10 and 5. But you gotta figure out how to build up that free throw percentage, or do you punt it? And I think once you get into the conversation of punting, fantasy drafting just gets much harder. And it's definitely a strategy to try, but you know what I'm saying? Like, I'd rather not have to go through that exercise.
Yeah,
like,
give me 9 and no. I'm not trying to go 7 and 2. Find a way to go 7 and 2 because there's going to be other teams that compete in the categories you have. And punting is tough. I know there's a lot of people that advocate for punting, but for me, I never found value in that because you can also, there's other teams have weaknesses too. And so in order to build a complete roster, you can't go into a match knowing you're already going to lose a category or two. Which does not make sense to me.
That doesn't make sense.
You have to win 5. So out of those 2 you punt, you at least that you can't lose 2 more. Or you can't lose 3 more. So I've never understood punting. For me, I try to find balance, but you draft Giannis, you're for sure punting free throws. Like the volume that he shoots and the percentage he shoots, it puts you at a disadvantage every week. Do you think Giannis's value is affected by points league? Because I think in a points league, now we're taking Giannis a little bit earlier, and that's a bigger conversation, I think, to have. Do you think that points league value sometimes, and even if you're drafting in points leagues, category value, right? If you're drafting in the points leagues, do you think that there's 2 varying formats affect the ADP of each other?
There's probably, I think on Yahoo, there's an even distribution of like points leagues and category leagues guys, but like I honestly feel like it's the name notoriety that's carrying his fantasy stock. Like, I don't think it's format specific. I think it's just like, yo, Giannis is like a perennial all-star, all-NBA player, former champion, monster on the court. But like, I think that
we don't see like LeBron. We don't see LeBron up here in the top 10. You know what I mean? Like, there's
true. That's true.
It's weird because
I think that's like ageism a little bit. Like, I feel like, oh, they're like, oh, Bron, Bron's still doing it. When's Father Time gonna catch up? Whereas like Giannis is 29, and like for the most part, he's been pretty healthy. But I don't know, man. Like, I feel you. Like 61% from the line last year on how many free throw attempts? I mean, 11 free throw attempts a game.
That tanks you.
That's brutal. That's like, you can't. That's just such you're putting yourself in such a hole that, to be honest, like maybe it's a hot take, but like I feel like that pushes Giannis to like a second rounder type of guy, like because he's not the person you want to build around.
It's tough, man. And like I said, I just think with all the talent that's in the league right now, there's no need to draft a player who is going to kill you on one category in the first round. Maybe you take him in the second. You've already established kind of a firm dominance in like maybe some of these categories or other categories, and you want to balance this thing out. And you're like, oh, Giannis, at least he gives me scoring and rebounding. Like, I would take that in the second round, and I still even think there might be some talent around there I'd rather take. But
yeah, so
at least it's a strategy though.
To go back to the punting for a second, like pairing Giannis with Domantas Sabonis makes a ton of sense.
Yes.
Stat stuffing wise. But again, if through 2 rounds, you are really bad at free throws and you get no stocks.
Yeah.
Like, you're putting yourself in, like, it looks good statistically. You're getting a whole bunch of counting stats, but I don't know, man. I just feel like it just makes your ability to compete with the whole league a little bit tougher. You got to hit all your draft picks when you're drafting Giannis in that kind of format.